And it's another show, number 41, on The Last Angry DJ. My name is Mitchell K.C. Hill. I'm the guy that's the host of the most. David Letterman will not be on today, but today we've got some great guests showing up today. Mark Giuliani will be popping in. Our good buddy Alexander Knight will be on as our producer and show sidekick, I guess, or other guest guy. So without further ado, here's Alexander.
Thanks,
How was
Mitch.
that?
That music was I don't think your voice was loud enough over top of the mix of that, so we'll have to fix that for next time. But yeah, thanks for everyone for being here. This is The Last Angry DJ, where we talk with luminaries in the world of broadcast, but also talk with content creators. I like to say that this show is the one that intersects new media versus old media as well. And that is a recurring theme on this show. Thanks to everyone for being here. And of course, thanks to Boink Software and Mimo Live for making this show happen.
It is a wonderful thing. By the way, I had to fake that intro. It was like a last-minute thing. And that just shows you how broadcast guys go. I mean, that's how we play. We fake things, and we sometimes do it well, sometimes do it badly. But we had a little technical glitch there, which we'll work out. Hey, welcome to show number, is it 41? Are we actually, yeah, I think we're up to 41 episodes, which is great because that means we're closing in on 1 year of doing The Last Angry DJ. And of course, it takes a lot of great people, as Alex was saying, that to be able to put this program together. And when we do the version that's just Alex and myself, and maybe a few guests to pop in and out, it's a show where we kind of like scatter our questions all over the place and do a little bit of tech here, a little bit of audio there, a little bit broadcast, a little bit all over. So this is the time that we encourage you to ask your questions. And Alex, how do people reach out and do? I think there's like two ways that they can ask their questions if they have some during the show.
Yeah, you can go to, well, we're not using it today, but we've created a new link for our Q&A system, which we still have to get set up and properly integrated into the show. But ask.thelastangrydj.com. That's ask.thelastangrydj.com. And that will redirect you to our Q&A system where you can ask questions on Sunday, usually starting early Sunday morning. That queue will be completely clear for you to put in those questions. Of course, you can continue to ask those questions inside of the YouTube chat, and we'll make sure we get those brought onto the show periodically and get those questions answered for you. And of course, if you want to join the community, you can also communicate with us via our Discord server. And the best way to do that is to join Discord, and you can click or scan that QR code, which I need to make bigger because we're now streaming in 4K, so I haven't scaled it up properly. But you should be able to scan that code and get into Discord as well.
We're now 4K. So keep that in mind when you're, it actually is a 1080, but it's been up-res to 4K and then down-res. But the quality difference is discernible, is it not? I mean, you can see every little tiny hair of mine that's standing on end. It's the static is now attacking. So I have hair that just goes out, and it's usually they tell you to hit the ground because you might get hit by lightning when the static is going. But there's two main ways that you can reach out to the show, as Alex was just telling you. You could go do it on the YouTube Live, which is only good during the show that we do live here on Sundays at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific. And the other way is through this thing called Mukana. Now, if you're a after-hours, office hours person, then you know what Mukana is. It's just a great way to communicate. But it's very, very simple if you make it simple. And for a little help, I'm just going to reach out to our good friend Mark Giuliani, who is the master of Mukana, as is Laura Thompson. And Mark, tell us how easy it is to use Mukana. And there's a couple of flavors of it that work well. What's the easiest way to get in there if you don't know what it is?
So the easiest way to get into Mukana is to use the link that Alex just said to you, and then the next step would be to go into the full version of Mukana. And what's great about that is that it brings in a whole new level to this, where it makes it so much more interactive, because not only can you ask questions of the host and the panelist, but you can also chat with other people in the show and comment amongst themselves about the answers to those questions. Not only that, you can vote on the questions. And typically, the questions with the most votes float to the top, and those get asked
Ah,
first. So it's a great tool. It's added a whole new dimension to radio because rather than just talk radio having to rely on the telephone, now we get a whole boatload of people commenting and talking, and we're testing it on with two different radio shows, and it's amazing to see the change it's doing to talk radio.
yeah, it's pretty cool. A strange name, great piece of software, and we want to thank Mark for allowing us to use his version of it. And we're sharing it with one of the shows that Mark runs on WGMD, which is Tipping the Scales
Tipping the
of
Scales
Justice.
of Justice on
And
the
you can
Talk of Delmarva,
on the Talk of
92.5 or
Delmarva. Now, if you're not in the
92.7 or
area, which is
98.5.
Delmarva, where do you go to? Can you stream that? Can you
So
listen
you
to a
can
stream?
go to industrynewsonline.com for Tipping the Scales of Justice, or you can go to realnewstalk.com for your News Talk America. So we
And
have
we were
two
talking
shows running.
briefly before the show started. Is tipping the scales of justice some phrase that relates to the scales of justice that Lady Justice holds, or is it just somebody who's a sloppy drinker that
No, it's
tips their
just
glass the
trying to
wrong?
make those scales level. So you're just trying to tip them so that they become level and the justice is equal.
Well, that's not the way it's supposed to work. It's supposed to have a true and a false. Anyhow, it's good. And thank you for your service. And we appreciate your help. And Laura Thompson, Laura's out there. She's struggling with a little bit of internet weirdness. You know, we all get that every once in a while. It comes, it goes. It's some days you're spotty and not on, and some days you're locked in. Like Alex, I was like stuttering like a couple of weeks ago. I mean, video wise, and
Yeah.
now it seems to be okay. So who knows? What's weird? It's like internet weather, isn't it? Can we like broadcast the internet weather for the East Coast?
What
Like
was that?
say, hey, I'm saying, can we do like a weather forecast for the internet? Well, the
A weather
folks on the East Coast are going to
Oh, don't even
80%
get me
chance of
started on
internet.
that. This is a good question for Mark because he's in broadcast. I don't really see a huge value in telling people about the weather. It made sense when we didn't have internet in our pockets and high speed internet. But I mean, my phone tells me the weather, 24/7. So Mark, do DJs need to announce the weather? Is that a is there a law that says you have to say that? Or are we holding on to a thing of the past that we just did because
There,
that's what
yeah,
you
there's a
always
lot
did?
more wrapped around the weather than just telling people the weather. For instance, we are the longest running AccuWeather uh, affiliate on Delmarva, and we actually have the meteorologists come on and talk to us. So there's a dialogue going back and forth about the weather, how it's going to be changing over the next few weeks. So we make a big thing about the weather. We have people sponsor the weather. And yes, you're right. You can pull out your iPhone and look at the weather, but a lot of people don't necessarily have the ability to have or afford an iPhone or to have or afford internet connections that are, super duper fast. So
Yeah, we
radio's
use
free to the consumer, and
that free radio. That's right,
that
free.
that brings, they want to know the weather, they want to know the news, they want to know lots of updates. So we even have marine weather where we tell them what the forecast is at sea. We have a shipping lane
Oh,
here
okay.
that goes right into Philadelphia. We're right where the Delaware Bay meets the Atlantic Ocean. So we'll get callers from the tankers to call in.
Do you have like dolphin reports? Like I've seen the most dolphin, and I've lived in Florida and other parts of the country that have a seacoast, and I've never seen more dolphins than I have in the Rehoboth Beach area early in the morning, like fishing, I guess, for
That's
bluefin
right.
or whatever
That's
happens to
right.
be out
They
there.
go up and down the coast. And so not only do we have marine weather, but we have during fishing season, we have the fishing report several times a day where they go around to the different anglers and they see what's been caught and they report who caught what boats went out and caught something. It's a big
And
thing. It's if we don't play it
Bluefin
one
have
day,
a
boy, do we get the calls about where's the marine report? Where's the fishing report?
yeah. And we said earlier, broadcasting is such that people want to know everything's okay. So when they call you a time and temp disc jockey, it means you're telling the time and the forecast and maybe the temperature. It's just something that you can't do it enough. You can't do it enough times. People expect that.
And what's interesting is people become used to routines. So they know when they get up in the morning, when the weather is playing, they need to be shaving, or when, something else comes on, they need to be making their coffee. So it becomes a reminder in the background, subconsciously, of where they need to be.
Yeah, and you have a mixed group of people out there that listen to your station. You have vacationers, visitors, plus you've got anglers and fishermen and people that are making a living out of shrimping and crabbing and doing things like that. Plus you've got farmers.
Right.
So you've got a vast group of people in your region of the east coast of the United States to serve.
And we have the ag report early in the morning for the farmers.
There you go, because they get up earlier than most of us.
Right.
Could we get like the farmers to disagree with this daylight savings time nonsense? We need to get rid of that.
I don't think the farmers care because it's the same amount of sunlight. It's just when it occurs.
See, that's the problem. Is that originally it was done supposedly to help the farmers out, and then it was like, well, for school children, so they don't have to go to school in the dark. But
I've heard different things. I heard during World War I, it was more about natural light for the factories and things.
Yeah, but if that's true, then those submarine towers that still are in Henlopen and down along the U.S. coastal areas, including Delaware, they've still got the towers that for looking out for the German U-boats that are out at sea. I don't think they ever stopped a U-boat coming in that close.
So that's Fort Miles, and Fort Miles has a 16-inch gun that was responsible for protecting the Delaware Bay because they were so afraid that the German ships would launch ballistics into the oil refineries in New Jersey.
Wow.
In Philadelphia. So during World War II, they were afraid that we would get our oil and gas.
And if it can continue up the Chesapeake, during Civil War, it was Fort McHenry, Fort Delaware. They had a couple of forts there were watching the Delaware because back then they didn't have satellites and things like that watching out for, English or French or whatever ships that would be coming in and attacking.
So the towers were connected all together by telegraph, and when they would fire, they would tell them, they would look at the ships or the targets, whatever the target was, and tell them, change this angle, change that angle.
It's like playing a game of Battleship.
Yep.
You sank my battleship. So anyhow, it's nice to know all that history. It's all good. Speaking of history, here's something. There's a group of radio stations that will no longer be giving you the weather or the temperature or the time. The Stephen King, the writer, is famously known for owning a bunch of independent radio stations in his hometown of Bangor, Maine. And he just announced that he's closing down his FMs. I guess he's got a couple of FMs and an AM, WZON, that all are run by Stephen King's trust, family, whatever. And I guess he's sort of given it up. At the end of the year, they're going to go dark. And this is part of a trend that I think we're going to see. And since, Mark, you're here, we could talk about it briefly, is that this is what you're going to start seeing is that some companies are just going to say, why am I placing, like Stephen King has lots of money, but why would he continue to put millions of dollars into a number of radio stations that are attempting to maintain a financially successful enterprise in Bangor, Maine? It's especially three of them. I didn't realize he had 3 radio stations, but they're closing down. And there's a bit of controversy over it because they don't know who's going to take them over. But this is sort of a trend, I think, that's going to happen over the next decade where larger companies are going to close stations down based on their viability financially. And it's going to be up to people, maybe like an independent like Mark, to pick them up and operate them as a hyper-local station. But what's interesting, I would think that those were hyper broadcast stations in the Bangor area. It's not that big a town. And apparently it's not working for him. So, have you heard that news?
I hadn't heard that news, no.
Yeah, it's just been announced.
Every time I come on, I hear this negative ways. It reminds me of Kelly's Heroes. Always with the
You're
negative
going
ways,
with the negative
Moriarty. Always with the
waves.
negative ways.
Negative waves. What a great
And
movie. Hey,
and you
by the
still have
way,
280 million people listening to radio every week. So
if you haven't seen and you're dying for something to watch, Kelly's Heroes is the best movie of all time with Donald Sutherland, Clint Eastwood,
Telly
uh, uh,
Savalas,
Telly Savalas. There's a bunch of people in it.
Don
And all the
Rickles.
Don Rickles. They're just liners from it that will make you just make
Mark,
you
I
laugh.
got a
It's,
question for you. Do you think you talked about bad news? Do you think that we oh, I've just frozen. Oh, you guys can still hear
you
me?
are frozen.
We hear you.
Okay. You talked about bad news. Do you think the industry at large focuses too much on bad news? Obviously, we hear news about people losing their jobs all the time and consolidation and that kind of thing. But do you think that we should focus more on the positive things? Like what are some of the good things that are happening right now in your world? What are you seeing? I mean, if we try to stay positive here, what do we need to remind people of?
Well, I think that what's interesting about radio and TV to some extent because it works with audio is that the most efficient way to build a brand and get information out about the company that you have is through advertising on radio and to some extent television. And it goes back to the old thing. If you ask a detective to talk to you about his interviews of witnesses about a crime, they will never tell you what color shirt, or they won't agree on what color shirt the criminal had, but they all know how many shots were fired. And that's really important because that tells us our mind remembers audio more than it remembers visual. And
Yeah,
so,
it's perfectly fine that you call us out for saying the negative news, but negativity just happens to be the thing that gets the most attention. Going back to the National Lampoon, the Philadelphia, not the Philadelphia Inquirer, the National Enquirer, all of those things are attention getting, and that's what all of us want. We want to gather attention and tell the story. So, we realize that radio is fighting for its relevancy, and that's why we bring you on, Mark. I think you're officially a member of this crew. You're not just a guest, because you are the guy we go to every time there's an issue with whether or not there's something going on in the radio industry and what's the future and how to be hyper local is what I was trying to say earlier.
let me say something about a little bit more about hyperlocal and what the benefits are of radio and what the positive aspects are. Where else, what other form of media brings you all of the information about the local community, that does the PSAs, the public service announcements, that does a lot of services for free for the community, goes down and helps the vets, and does all kinds of things that benefit the community without really costing the community a lot of money. And that's something that radio does that's local. If you get a big chain that comes in and wants to do that, it's really difficult for them to be able to get a return on investment, hire the number of local people they have to hire in every station that they would have to get that deep into the community. So I think, yeah, there are some positive things that could be talked about in radio and local TV and even streaming and podcasting locally. And that is what is it doing to benefit the community? And I think that's what's important.
Yeah, you could also get it from the Farmer's Almanac, right? It's amazing how often that is correct, by the way. It's just a crazy magazine. You're no comment. Okay, that's good enough. So here we go. We got a bunch of Stephen King radio stations. So it's newsworthy because Stephen King is newsworthy, and it's also newsworthy shutting the stations down. And it obviously asks the question, why are they being shut down? Because they are small and local radio stations. And Stephen King has gone on TV and a couple of podcasts. By the way, I've invited him to come on here. It would be a miracle if Stephen King were to come on, but you never know. You know, I walked into a club one time in Philadelphia, and the band was playing. It was not a huge club, and Stephen King was there with like Jackson Browne and a couple other guys playing in a band. And I said, "What's the band name?" And they said, "We don't know. They just came in. It's kind of like an open mic thing." And there's Stephen King playing with the band. So anyhow, that's the kind of guy he is. He's just an everyday kind of guy that sits down next to you and has a beer. So maybe we can get some straight answers from him. But the whole idea of all of the changes that are going on. Guess what? They've always had changes in broadcasting. Some of them pretty serious. Like whatever happened to RKO. RKO used to be a major concern, and they were gone like in a very short period of time. So nobody's totally insulated from the possibilities of some distressful advertising practice that would get them in trouble, which is what happened to RKO, and that's just the way it is. So radio is what radio is. It's always been a very tumultuous business. I know as talent that worked in radio that you're only as good as your last rating period, and I can say that at least on 5 different occasions, I worked at a station where they completely cleaned house. And in most businesses, that would be traumatic. It would be a traumatic experience. Everybody just got fired, except maybe you. Or maybe you just got fired and nobody else did. But that's something you have to live with in the broadcast industry. And right now, a lot of our good friends like Andre Gardner got fired in a #1 position in Philadelphia at WMGK. He was voted the #1 disc jockey. MGK has outstanding ratings in the 5th largest market in the US of A. Mark, what do you think of that? A guy that was a very talented performer, was very, very involved with his listeners, was an upbeat and positive guy, which I'm not, but he was an upbeat and positive guy that really loved his business, even had a contract, and boom, Beasley knocked him out. What do you think is the reason behind
I
that?
don't know enough information to comment on it. There's 2 sides to every story, and we don't know what was going on, behind the scenes. Was there a push to get more revenue, more salary, and it just fell on hard times because the budgets are getting tougher and tougher? Or was there something else going on? Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, I've invited Beasley to come on, and it's really hard right now to get people to represent the large broadcasters to come on, and because we've kind of dinged at them a little bit, and I figured maybe they deserve a chance to say, hey, look, we're in the business of making money. It's a version of show business, and we have to maintain our being in the black or being in the red or whatever the case may be. So we would love to have the Beasley family come on and defend that point of view. But you're absolutely right. We don't know the story behind it. I know he had a contract that's good for another couple of years, and if they fire him, they very likely have to fulfill that contract. It's not often that happens. But it's a very tumultuous business, particularly in these days where things are being upended. I have a side business, which has been my main source of income, where I do video commercials and advertising. And ever since COVID, it's gone. I mean, not just a little bit, it's gone. That business is history. And the corporations and pharmaceutical companies that I talk to, they all say the same thing. We're just going to let things settle down. There's just been an election. Things are, not settled. People are worried. When people get worried, they hold on to their money. I'm sure you're seeing that too, Mark, in your industry, that your advertisers are just a little bit more reluctant to give up the money to get the word out there because they're just concerned with things in general. Fear is a
pretty
nasty
cyclical.
motivator.
I mean, every time when there's an election, you go through this point of, okay, a lot of the big businesses that invest in things outside of their own business, whether it's for marketing or whatever, will say, okay, we can basically work with whatever either party is going to do. We just need to know ahead of time what it is, and then we'll make changes to work however we work best with what that party wants to do. So you see this around election time. Okay, let's see what's going to take place, and then they want to get all their ducks in a row before they go and move forward. So there's always a pause around election time.
Yeah, and it's challenging to sell airtime for a radio station because now it's not just a radio station; it's digital media. So you have to extend your sales representation to your advertisers to help them be more competitive, not only on the radio station to buy the right schedule that gets the best impressions out there, but also how to take advantage of streaming media, other digital media. And I'm sure you're out there helping a lot of people in a lot of different ways that have nothing to do with that broadcast signal that's going out over your antennas. Is that sort of part of it?
I look at it this way. So we're not a radio station. We are a marketing company that builds brands. We just happen to have 2 radio stations that are part of our portfolio. that enables us to broadcast and advertise and build brands through those. But we can also place those advertisements and those brand slogans anywhere we want. If you want us to build you a jingle, we build you a jingle. If you want us to do digital media, we do digital media. So it's become a point where the radio stations that were around in the 80s and 90s that just focused on one form of media have to branch out and say, look, we're more than a radio station. We're a marketing company. We'll help you build your brand. Or if we do well, then you do. If you do well, then we do well, basically. And so that's what our focus is getting our sales team to build itself up to use whatever means that we can get to help build your brand. So
Yeah,
you
well,
want a
good on
jingle,
you
we'll
for
get you
doing
a
that.
jingle. You want digital, we'll get you digital. You want to go on another radio station, we'll help that. We'll help you do that. But we want to make your brand consistent across every form of media.
And that's true. And it's not as easy as it used to be back in the days when I was on the radio. It was a pretty easy sell because people were coming to you wanting to get airtime on the #1 radio show. Nowadays, you have to show that the audience is here, here, and here. And you have to not only supply entertainment or information across the particular age group, but you also do it against a lifestyle, which we call psychographic. It's much more complicated than it used to be. So
it may be a little bit more complicated. I don't think it's harder. I think it's actually easier because
sorry.
now there's many different ways and avenues you can take to help build that result. And so it's building that result and getting that company bigger that is what really is the goal and what you get so excited about when you succeed at doing it. And we do succeed a lot. We've been very, lucky or not lucky, but very good at doing this for a time. So we've been fortunate. But it is, I don't, you say, again, you come across as saying, it's harder to do than it used to be. I think it's easier to do than it used to be because we have all these tools now that we didn't have before. And we have a huge amount of depth to go to really get a brand out there and build a local brand.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I maybe we're arguing at crossed purposes here because I think that the trying to get people's attention in a world where there's so many different things vying for your attention is the complicated part that I'm referring to. In other words, it's not just 3 radio stations in the market. It's radio, it's TV, it's streaming media, it's podcast, it's vodcast. There's so much more out there. So when I say digital media, that's my interpretation of what it is. But
I will agree with you that
okay,
everybody
good.
has so many choices to spend their free time now.
Sure,
Whether,
sure.
Whether it's digital media, whether it's old traditional broadcast media, you have a lot more choices now. So what's important?
Sure.
Important is the quality. The quality of the program has to stand out so that people, whether they're all going to their phone, whether you're
Yep.
using digital media or even TV today, most of the local stations are broadcasting through their website. And so it's just really, how do you become top of mind on that device?
Sure. And again, Mark, thanks for coming in here and helping us out. Alex has got some technical issues he's dealing with behind the scenes. And if you see me glancing over like this, it's because I'm looking to see what some of the questions are. Hey, there's John Preto, who I haven't seen in a while on here, Hershey, and some of the other questions coming in from various people. Thank you. We'll get to those as we go on. And I'm glad to have Mark here as a co-host. We sort of pulled the rabbit out of the hat to have you come in. Here's something I've noticed, and I'm just curious how things are continuing to move in this direction. I was thinking about wireless and wireless services, and you talk about digital media. It's like a marketing battle on TV when you see T-Mobile or Sprint or whoever that's left in the battle, AT&T. They started out with what was it? The first digital services, 2G. That was the thing for a while. Then it was 3G, then 4G and 4G LTE. First of all, the numeral that I'm mentioning before the G is referring to usually the frequency range. So we're talking in gigahertz here. So 4G is 4 gigahertz. We're kind of living with 5G right now. And now they just announced 6G. Wow, what a surprise. 6G right behind everybody else coming along. It's apparently 45 times faster than your 5G service. I'm here to say that I have 5G on my dumpy old iPhone, and it's not really that good. I don't even think it's as good as my LTE service. And I think the reason for it is that the higher the frequency, the harder it is for it to go a longer distance. In other words, unless you've got a 5G tower real close to where you are, it's not going to really perform the way that everybody's been hollering about it. It's not going to perform as well as the 3G, or maybe your phone will fall back to those services. I'm not good enough to know that. Mark, I don't know if you're an expert on all these wireless services out there.
Mr. Preto is probably the expert, but I would say that my experience, and I'm not an expert anyway, is that there needs to be a lot more 5G towers because they don't
Right.
have the distance that the 4Gs did. It's truly a challenge when you work in an area and you're trying to live stream, and that area does not have good coverage, whether it's cellular or land, land-based internet, which, as you know, lower, slower Delaware does not have the fastest connections around. So it becomes a challenge when you're trying to do remotes, and you're trying to use, Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile to get those remotes out because they're just limited in the upspeed. And as you're trying to send things up the network, it's not as fast as down the network in most cases. We're very fortunate at our main broadcast studios that we do have FiOS, so we can get 1 gig in both directions.
So you're saying that you, in a pinch, you might use a wireless connection, whether it's 5G or 4G or whatever, but mostly you're having a wired connection via fiber or
Well,
Ethernet.
you know what happens when we try and do Zoom meetings as a background to doing this type of technology, and people come in on Wi-Fi. The audio quality isn't as good as if they're connected hardwired through their landline, and it's just the way that the wireless modems work. They tend to garble the audio at times because they get overloaded. But um, so we will defer to an Ethernet connection as often as we can.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I find that if I'm doing an event for somebody or something that involves 3.9 service, they call that, it's 99.9%, and there's even higher ranges, that you better have a hard connection of some kind. And FiOS happens to be one of the best ones. And here's the weird thing about this is all marketing hoopla in a sense, because it's the last mile with these services, whether you have Comcast or FiOS via Verizon or any of the number of other services to serve the rest of the country. It could be any combination of things, including microwave, but the last mile may be cable. It might be a fiber optic connection. Again, John Preto probably knows more about this than I do, but I'm just curious about all these various services. And now they're announcing we're just getting used to 5G, and now they're saying 6G is the next big thing. And I'm here to say that I don't think 5G is that good. If they're going to come out with a new one, why don't they fix 5G first before they go on to 6? I think it's just a battle of the marketing
Well,
people.
do we know that the fifth generation, which had the cells had to be closer together, is that going to be true in the sixth generation, that those cells will still have to be close together?
Yeah, sure, because 6 means 6 gigahertz. And the higher you go frequency-wise, the more channel issues you're going to have with the signal bouncing or being blocked by buildings. So you're going to have the same problems with tower separation with 6G, maybe even more so than you do with 5G. So until they really build it out and they've got a 5G tower on every street corner or a repeater on every office building or apartment complex, it's going to be an issue, because if you're stretching the distance between where the 5G is most effective and where it isn't, you gotta close that distance. So I'm just saying, maybe they should get 5G together before they start selling this. It just sounds better. I mean,
Well,
when you're watching the TV, when you want 6G because it's available,
well,
you
the
know.
other limitation is the cell towers can only handle so many calls at once. So I know when we had an office in one place about 5 years ago, we tried to just do away with the whole landline system and just give everybody a cell phone. We had to buy them cell phones anyway because they're going out in the field. So we tried to just do the whole office as and this is not radio, this is architecture and engineering, try to do us all on cell phones. And we kept getting dropped calls. We had the engineers come out from Verizon and they said, well, the tower that's closest to you is only limited to 20 calls at a time. And
Wow.
so that's a whole nother consideration. You might get full bars, but those towers get saturated pretty quickly.
Wow, what a shame. Well, anyhow, it seems to me a technical issue that has to be worked out. And like with most of those, you've got the engineers over here, and they're saying, well, here's the limitations of that signal. And then you got the marketing guys over here saying, we need to talk about it more. We need to sell it, sell, sell, sell. It's great, it's great. And they start making promises that the engineers can't fulfill. So I'm just saying, slow it down. 6G sounds great, except I'd rather have a great 5G connection. And like Mark says, I can't depend on it. If I were doing this show on a 5G connection, I would be stuttering all over the place at some point. It wouldn't be dependable because it might be somebody else is using they say famously that 99% of the bandwidth on the internet is being used by 1% of the users of the service. It just means that some people are more sophisticated on how they use it, and they kind of overbook the seats like they do on the airlines when it comes to making recommendations for how they build out these different services. So that's just my little beef about what's going on with cellular phones and the service, and whether it's faster or slower or better or whatever. Maybe AI will come in and fix all of this. Maybe AI will determine whose calls are more important than others, and we know that guy has more interesting phone calls. If John Preto's calling me right now, he gets precedence over everybody else. John should be the number one guy. Who knows? That might be it. And speaking of AI, I watched a current movie that's streaming called Scared. And if you spell it out, I just broke the tip off my pen. See, I'm getting upset. I just broke my pen. Anyhow, if you're watching a lot of shows and if you spell out the word scared, the AI is in the middle of it. Another marketing ploy on the basis of the movie. But it's interesting. It's a story about this AI service that's being marketed by this poor, unsuspecting advertising guy, and they decide to use him as a test case for this Alexa-like device, and all kinds of nasty things ensue, and then it turns out that the AI is already in everything, and it's taking over the world. I think that was interesting in the storyline as I watched it is that the AI started taking over the family and the jobs that the family normally didn't want to do. And this is my theory about AI. I don't think AI is going to come out and be nasty and all of a sudden destroy humanity as we know it. I think what will happen is that we slowly but surely give more and more over to AI so that it can do the jobs that we don't want to do. So AI does our bookkeeping. That's one of the examples on the story. AI starts writing a thesis for the parent who's got to write a thesis for, he's got a chat GPT. He's already doing that. So all these things are going on, and AI is sort of taking you, oh, yeah, sure, I'll do that for you. Maybe AI will start driving your car. So this is my feeling, and feel free to jump in either on the questions or Mark, if you want to,
I mean,
jump in here. I think
I think
AI, well, if it takes over, it's going to be because we gave it to it. We gave it jobs that we don't want to do anymore. So now it's your
I
point.
think it's like any new technology. It can be a little bit intimidating and scary at first, but we need to learn how to have it become a tool to make everything we do a little bit better. I know that my son's studying computer science in school, and he came home one day and we were talking. He was upset like the first week AI came out because his classmates were all writing the programming code using AI. And I said, well, try not to do that because you're not going to learn what it takes to be a good programmer. You're going to start to rely too much on the AI to do all the work for you. And he understood right away. And I said, but his concern was it was going to take all the jobs away. And I said, it's not going to take all the jobs away. It's going to take away the jobs that are repetitive away. You're still going to need people that can be analytical and think about things and think about the what ifs that are going to take place. And for security, like DoD is not going to let AI run the security. They're going to want people to run the security and make sure everything's tied down. And so there just has to be a way. We have to just find a way to create more jobs with it, but they're going to be different jobs, and it always happens that way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the thing that happened to your son is a very interesting story, and it's a lesson that I learned ages ago before AI with calculators. Not the kind that you had the old mechanical calculators. I'm talking
Adding
about the
machines.
the original calculator, electronic calculators came out.
Scientific
They were like the
calculators.
size of a brick. I had a Hewlett Packard, and I got into trouble at school using it. They said, "Well, you can't use that." And I said, "Well, I have a slide rule. What's the difference between using a slide rule and a calculator to do arithmetic? Just simple arithmetic." And their point was that you have to do it in your head. And I agreed that you need to understand what you're doing so that you can do it yourself first, and then it's okay to hand that job over to a calculator. How many of us don't use a calculator now and do it longhand arithmetic? Carry the one and do all that stuff. I think you need to understand the basis behind the arithmetic before you give up and start using a calculator to do everything, because it's easier. And that's
Right.
my theory about the technical things. We got a question coming in from Ernesto. Wonders what it would be like to with AGI. I guess AGI is unleashed next year. What is AGI? Anybody know?
Artificial
Ernesto, you're gonna have.
general intelligence.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. That's Alex. He can be heard, but not seen, which sometimes might have its advantages. I don't know how to answer that. Mark, do you have something you want to say on that?
I don't either. It's the first time I've heard of AGI as opposed to AI. So I don't know enough about it to really comment on it.
So I'll chime in. Sorry, because my video's out. But so AGI and what a lot of technologists, and primarily the CEO of OpenAI is what's his name? I'm blanking on his name, but he's talking about how AGI, artificial general intelligence, is right around the corner, which a lot of us don't believe because I think it still has a long way to go. But it's the idea that when is AI going to have general human intelligence? And I just think for me, I think that more than a decade away. I think a lot of people that are investing in AI are really overstating how where it currently is technologically speaking. So I think I think it's more than just a few years out. I acknowledge it is rapidly changing at an insane rate right now, but I don't see AI being as smart as the average human being right now in terms of the way it responds. It doesn't understand meaning. That's the problem. AI does not understand meaning.
And context, is that what you're saying? It doesn't get the context.
It's getting better context, but it doesn't. It still makes really dumb mistakes when it comes to understanding meaning.
Is there AI out there yet? And I'll throw this out to John Preto and maybe you, Alex. Has an AI passed the Turing test yet? Have they actually applied a legit Turing test against it?
I don't know.
Everybody understand what a Turing test is? A test that was done by the English philosopher or whatever, electrical, whatever the heck he is. He's just a smart guy. A test that would determine whether or not a computer or device or anything has become self-aware. And if you apply that Turing test and it passes, then it's a legitimate life form, I guess, in a sense, is that it has its own way of thinking. So AGI might be the next step for AI, or it's just another brand of it, or is it the 5G version of AI? That's the big question. And they use that term large language. What's that, Alex? It's a large language model?
Large language model, LLM.
Okay. And what exactly does that mean? What is a large language model?
As far as I know, that is, probably not the best. I'm not going to give the best explanation, but it is John Preto in the chat saying, yes, Turing test passed. That's good to know.
Wow, that's scary. So it's a legitimate thing now.
Yeah. Large language model. Well, it's basic. So, all these AIs, they are trained on data sets. right? So they are able to they basically ingest all this data and they're able to regurgitate it, right? And based on the input that you give it, right? But also the problem is that it's often wrong. You know, what people often say is the AI is hallucinating, which I hate that expression, because what they really mean is that it's just giving you bad information. It's just wrong. Just say it's wrong. So it often, you know, unfortunately, they're ingesting so much data that they're also ingesting bad data, and that's the problem. Is how do you vet that? There are no laws. There's no regulation. So I don't know how you're going to police that. I'm I like AI. I use Chat GPT every day. I find it very valuable, but I'm also somewhat concerned about people relying on services like this and taking what it says as gospel, as the truth, when it's making mistakes all the time.
But I
So
think over
maybe,
time they're gonna that will remedy itself. I think John Preto chimed in and says that AGI is predicted by 2030. He also said that his 5G works great in Las Vegas.
well, they have so many buildings close by that, and so many tourists that need to have that. I can see it working there before it works anywhere else. So, congratulations. We'll go to Las Vegas and stay at your house, John, and try your 5G service. Maybe you'll get that 6G before us. It's like franchises. You go to some cities like Atlanta, and you go, there's like every new franchise on the planet is there first. And then eventually they trickle down to your little smaller towns like mine. So it's fun stuff. AI is such an interesting conundrum. It's like uh, people worry about it in so many different aspects. I think people worried way back when about the horseless carriage being replaced by gasoline engines or steam power or the cotton gin or any other innovation. We'll call them disruptive technologies, and they scare people just in general. So I think AI is just the latest series of scares that are out there. I don't think it's going to be quite like the movies in Hollywood, as I was saying. I think AI will just be more and more dependable and more useful, just like a calculator is to all of us. We accept them to be used in making calculations every day. We don't do long-handed arithmetic when we're at the accountant's figuring out our taxes. He's got a computer program that's doing all those calculations through some kind of an algorithm that does all the right things. So I fear for us losing our humanity to something else for the really important work. So if we stop teaching students what arithmetic is, the basis for it, like 2 plus 2 equals 4, as opposed to just get a calculator and figure it out. I bet you could ask like kids in school now, what's 2 plus 2? And hold on a second. And they get their phone out and do the calculation. That fears
That's
makes
a
me
whole topic for a
makes me
different
scared.
day.
Yeah, it is. But I'm
I
filling.
mean,
I'm filling here today because we're
look
talking
at
about
look at
AI.
our
We're
own
talking.
state. Look at Delaware has increased the amount of money spent on education tremendously, but we're still what is the ranking's pretty low. The more
Well,
money
the
they spend,
rankings
the
across the
ranking goes
U.S. are
down.
bad
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the United States. We're having a problem teaching our children. That's an issue. It's not the same in other countries, but got to remember, if you're comparing us to China, for example, they've got a whole different way of enforcing that students learn certain ways, and there's not a lot of freedom involved in that. We have a lot of freedom here and entitlement that causes the scores to suffer a little bit. Mom, I don't want to do my homework. Why do I have to do homework? Exactly. I mean, I don't bring up kids. I don't know what that kind of scenario, how it plays. But you're right. I can see why we have issues with our scores not being quite the way they are. It's not just in Delaware, but Delaware has its share of problems. The question is, in Delaware, can we make things happen faster because of the size of our legislature and the size of the state? You would think that there'd be some advantages to that, but I just don't know. So, AI, is
Yeah,
it going to be a bad thing or not?
and John Preto just chimed in again. AI won't eliminate jobs. The people that learn how to use AI will take jobs. And he's right. It's just like everything else that's come through in the past. The internet didn't eliminate a lot of jobs. It just changed what people do. And that's the same that's happened since we've exported a lot of our manufacturing. You've those jobs that used to happen in manufacturing now are have changed. They're FedEx couriers. They work for UPS. They do a lot of different things.
How are you using AI in your radio stations now?
So we use AI a couple of different ways. Some of the software programs that radio stations use include software that will help you maintain the different accounts for advertising. And some of those now will allow you to take something you want to do to develop a brand, give it 4 or 5 words around a brand, and it'll come up with ideas for how to write 30-second spots for that brand.
Wow.
So
Do you think there will be a radio station for other AIs to listen to? Because
yeah,
AIs deserve now, since they passed the Turing test, they need to be entertained. And they don't want just the time and the temperature. They want, new things going on, new ways that AI is taking over or not being, I thank my little devices, my Google device and my A-Lady device, because I'm afraid that at some point they're going to go back and check to see, were you respectful to your AI assistant? Maybe there'll be some kind of jail that we get placed in, or rights that are
you're
taken
an
away
AI
from.
bully.
I don't want to be an AI bully. I mean, I'll go on record as saying I'm worried about what AI is going to do to people. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's that people are going to do the bad things with it. That's the issue. Like when you see guys come on TV and say, well, like Mark was saying, in our three-letter agency, we always have a human inserted between the final decision and the AI that might be making recommendations. Maybe somewhere, some country, I'll just say North Korea or China, because they're the ones we always pick on. Maybe they don't have that. Maybe they're working on ways that the human element's taken completely out of it, and the AI is making out super fast decisions to do whatever mischief that has to be done, whether it's launching missiles or. I mean, have you noticed that all of a sudden they're talking an awful lot about World War III scenarios? It's like it's in the news. Talk about negativity. I'm just seeing it on MSN, and when I bring up my computer, apparently maybe I'm doing searches that are triggering that algorithm. But I'm a little concerned with all this stuff. Are we that stupid? Are we stupid enough to have that kind of an ultimate battle? We know what the outcome of that. There's got to be smarter people than that making decisions, even if the person that's in charge of that country is a nutcase. They could be doing a morning show somewhere on some local government-subsidized radio station. Who the heck knows? Do we have any other interesting questions coming in? I'm going to take a peek over here and take a look. Thank you again, John, for your input. AI won't eliminate jobs. The people that learn how to use AI will take jobs. I think you're right there, John. I think that's a good thing. And John's done speeches to organizations in and around Las Vegas about this. I've seen them, and he does a great job with it. So maybe we could have John on sometime to speak about what's going on with the AI. But Mark, the thing with AI and as it relates to broadcasting, I think anywhere there's a chance to save some money and make your product better, if an AI can do that for you, nobody could blame you for using it or taking advantage of it. It's got to be out there. I mean, there's
I
that.
look at it. Yeah, I look at it this way. If you don't use it, then you're not bringing your client the fullest, the best solution that can be out there. You always want to be be on the forefront and working with the technologies that are
Is
out
that
there.
your AI behind you there? That
Yeah,
device?
that's my AI device.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
That
Nice.
is, I think it's a mill in Delaware.
Oh,
All
really?
the slides behind me are about Delaware, so I think that's
Excellent.
a mill press. No, but back to AI. I think if you don't utilize it, you risk not bringing your clients the best solutions, and you just need to accept the fact that technology is moving on. How are we going to best use it to
Or the other guy,
move
your
society on?
competition may use it against you.
Right. They may use it against us. That the competition doesn't worry me so much, because if you do the best you can do for the client to build the brand, then you're going to build a relationship. And once you build that relationship, you become their marketing department. And what the competition's doing is out there selling 30-second spots. They don't know how to become a marketing company. And nobody
Got it.
got up in the morning and said, hey, you know what I need? I need myself some 30-second spots. They got up in the morning trying to figure out how to get more revenue, how to grow their business, how to make it better.
And do you see that catching on? Is that
Yeah,
job
I mean,
becoming easier to do?
I see it. It's growing our companies because our companies are no longer in this mindset that we're just this small one stick in the mud station. We now have a mindset of being a marketing company. We've brought in experts from around the country that teach us how you brand businesses, and we're growing.
All right, Ernesto's back again. AI has already taken jobs, but if you don't learn how to use it, oh, that I already answered this, then you'll fall behind, programmers especially. It's just another example, like Mark was just saying, that your application of AI will determine your success doing your job for your client. And that could be everything from doing that for radio to running a country and competing against another country who might be doing things. The AI should be a helper medium, not a decision maker. So I hope we recognize those lines that we have to draw between reality and not so much reality. Any other questions? Get them in now because we're just about to wrap the show up. But just on the subject of questions, we're doing our very best to take more and more info from you, our listeners and viewers. We're a viewer-driven program on Sundays at 2 p.m. Pacific and 5 p.m. Eastern when we broadcast live because we like the idea of this live interaction that's going on. Anything can happen. We could have a problem where somebody falls out or comes in, or we have the luck to have Mark available to answer a lot of great questions. Thanks again, Mark, for doing that. And we encourage you to ask those questions either by going to YouTube and logging in. You have to log in order to get the chat enabled, and or using our Mukana, which is a device that enables you to have, as Mark calls it, what do you call it, third dimension
It's
in
just interactive
interaction?
radio. It's
Interactive radio,
interactive
really?
radio. We actually call it, instead of calling it Mukana, because I know that name may not be there for a long time, we call it Dial, the Digital Interactive Audience Lounge. And so we have all our listeners that want to join Dial, and they sit in the lounge and they chat with each other and ask the different panelists questions and talk to the host, and the host talks back. And it's great because traditional talk radio, you're waiting for that phone call to come in. With using this technology, the announcer doesn't have to wait for the phone call to come in. All of that interaction's going on right there in front of them, so they can bring it to the surface.
Great technology with a funny name. Ernesto's back with another question. Said he called to schedule an OLLS appointment. Not sure what that acronym is. And now instead of going to a human customer service, it took me to a very intelligent AI that sounded very human to schedule an appointment. I was impressed. How do you feel about talking to a AI that doesn't identify itself as an AI, but starts making ums and ahs and whatever when you get that telemarketer call or some customer service call through an AI?
Well, there's the ChatGPT has the version that you can run on your iPhone that you talk back and forth with it and it tries to have a conversation with you. I think that that's something society has to brace for, is don't always believe what you see, because not only AI, but just somebody very good at video production can make it look like somebody's saying something they're not. So you just always have to trust, trust and test and verify what you're hearing or what you're looking at.
Is it just me, or those fake videos that you're talking about have a certain look or sheen to them that looks fake? I mean, they're very realistic. I'd seen some with political candidates, and they're playing together in a band or something, and it's like that's cool. I mean, it's a great song, and they seem to be actually playing the guitars and the drums and stuff. But it almost like they should be required to put a little announcement in the corner that says this is AI, developed, because at some point they're going to get so good that people need to be told that this is an AI generated image. Because what are you going to believe? You can't believe everything that's on the internet. You can't believe everything you hear on the radio. And if it's going to start doing the talking for us, then it has everything. It's almost as if we need another app that says this is give it a graphical rating that says 80% chance of being real, 10%
I think we're
chance of
headed
being real.
somewhere there. Like the Federal Trade Commission is going to come in and say this has to be done in such a way that the public knows it's not really human. But I think that there's a story in one of the radio journals, and I wasn't prepared for this, so I don't know which one, but it talks about how a radio station went to the next level in terms of technology, what they thought was the next level. and they program their entire day to be AI. So all of the announcers were AI. What they were playing was all generated AI, and within 2 weeks they were out of business.
Wow. How about that? So
So,
people don't necessarily trust it. Maybe
no,
maybe some people just don't want to
at
know.
least at this level, there's a certain human context that's still there between humans that is missing in AI. I'm not here to say that AI is never going to get that. It's going to be scary when it does.
Yeah.
But and you can tell with ChatGPT starts to mimic you. If you stutter or you clear your throat, the answer comes back with a stutter or a clearing of the throat. So it's kind of, you're like, oh, what's going on here? This is getting a little too humane.
It's like I have a T-shirt that says, "Don't make me use my radio voice." So if I get an AI call, trying to, "Hey AI, how you doing today?" I said, "I'm doing fine. How about you, Mitch?" It's like, oh, wait a minute, something weird's going on. There used to be a sci-fi show on, I think that's coming back, called Red Dwarf. It was done by the BBC, and the hologram characters had to have a big H on their forecast or on their forehead. And I thought that was kind of interesting because maybe that's the way we're going with AI, particularly on the internet, that the AI has to have some kind of a marking on its forehead that says AI, so that when it's talking to you or it begins to speak to you, how they say when you get a telemarketer call or a customer service call, this call may be recorded for your protection and for training purposes. It's like, instead of that stupid disclaimer, which means nothing, why don't you say this call may be handled by an intelligent receptionist that's not real?
Whenever I get those calls, I ask them for their credit card. It throws them for a complete loop, and they say, "Why do you need my credit card?" And I say, "Because I have to bill you for my time. You want to talk
Sure,
to me? It's
sure.
going to cost you money. I need your credit card number." Click.
They also say don't ever say yes to a telephone call
Because
from
once
a
that's recorded,
telemarketer.
it could be used anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, they could say, "Well, you just said yes to that answer to that question. Can we charge a credit card for this service?" And it's annoying. I called. Here's a typical scenario that drives me nuts. I called to take my car in for service, and there was a number on the email that I received confirming my service call with the logo on it and everything from Mercedes-Benz. I drive a Mercedes, sorry. And it's a call this number to if you have any questions. So I called the number on the email, and this very nice voice came on and said, "You're a special caller. If you're over 50, press 1. Well, I said, what the hell? I'll press 1. I don't want to pay $800 for a B1 service. So I pressed 1, and then the voice said, "Congratulations, you just won a Medic Alert bracelet for your home." And I'm like, that's kind of weird for a Mercedes dealership to offer me free Medic Alert. So I thought, okay, so stand by and we'll put you on a call with the operator, figuring I'm going to get to the service guy. No, the operator turns out to be somebody that's selling me Medicare. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm like in a rabbit hole now of services. I don't think they even knew that this was going on at the
Did you dial the
dealerships.
wrong number?
No, I did not. I checked it and I called it again and I got the same stupid thing. So when I called the dealership on their main landline, which I found, like you can on the internet, they said, "No, that's impossible. That can't happen." I said, "I'll send you the email that you guys sent me using my my text announcement, whatever." And it was the same thing. And they were angry at me because they thought I was trying to scam them over it. And I was saying, look, if I go to a friend's restaurant and I have a bad meal, I'm going to tell them, hey, the meal wasn't quite great. There was something wrong, as a courtesy to them. So they got angry at me. And then it turned out that I'm not going to do business with them because of the way they responded from a customer service standpoint. But it's like these AIs are insinuating themselves into everything, or maybe the telemarketers are. Maybe I shouldn't blame the AI for it.
Yeah, I think it's telemarketing and maybe a little bit of phishing going on there.
Yeah, I mean it's like they get you every which way, and I really feel badly for older people who are used to taking everybody at face value and giving them the benefit of the doubt. And I know that one time, God rest her soul, my mom called me up in tears because she said that my brother had just been put in jail and they needed her credit card in order to bail him out quickly before some kind of major fuss happened. I said, "Mom, give me the phone number." And I called that number. Boy, I let him have it, But there's only so much you can do. And you can only do so much if it's an AI. If you're cursing at an AI, it's wasted time. You're not getting anywhere with it. So anyhow, there's some good things about it. there's some bad things about it. You can be sure that people will take AI and use it to serve their own nefarious purposes. I'm surprised, and maybe they have already started, that the porn industry hasn't gotten a hold of AI to generate their own videos. It's expensive doing videos, and sometimes weird videos, which are out there. Trust me, you search for anything, you're going to find a porn site. I don't weird telemarketing calls. There's going to be a Google search that's going to bring up something like that. So that's about it for today's show. We kind of covered the gambit about AI and different phone services and what's going on in the radio industry, and the fact that Stephen King is shutting down some radio stations. We saw we had some technical issues, but we like to keep it real, and that's part of our learning process. If Elon Musk can launch rockets and have them explode and everybody applaud that, then we'll say we're learning the same way by iteration. So that's the way it goes. So, Mark, thanks for coming in and saving the day as our special guest. Unexpected, but always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, and it was good to see our friend John Preto in on the chat. That was great. Thanks, John, for.
Is that his house, Mount Vernon? Has John moved into Mount Vernon, or whatever that house is behind you?
Oh no.
Looks like
that's
Mount
in
Vernon.
Delaware. That's not Mount Vernon.
Oh, sorry. It is not Mount Vernon. Just want to make sure get that out there straight. So again, Mark, you're more than just a regular guest. You're one of our regular guests.
For Alex.
You're part of the team, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, and Alex, thanks for being. I know you were scurrying around behind the scenes making something work. Just for the record, what happened in the background there? What kind of issue did you have?
The HDMI to USB encoder that I use, the Roland, just died. It just will not output video. So
the Roland is a very good device. I've always had good luck with it.
So does this have anything to do with maybe now going from HD to 4K? You think it got overloaded?
The only thing, okay, well, I won't be able to know for sure until we turn off everything after the show is done. But there was one weird thing, because Mimo Live is recording a video feed and recording ISO audio, and I got a pop-up message about low disk space, and then my video just went poof, which was weird.
Because 4K uses so much more data than.
So I still have space on the drive, but I'm wondering if I close, it could be a bug. Now, if I close Mimo and my video comes back, then it's a really weird bug I'm going to have to report.
Yep.
But it's weird that only my video died and nobody else's video died. So.
But it started to freeze early on.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. No, the device is working. So I switch the cable. It powers on. It actually says it's receiving an HDMI signal from my ATEM, but the problem is the USB part of it that sends the signal out is just dead.
Sometimes USB, you exceed the. You have to do like a. Was that?
I don't know.
There's
Or
an
it
app
could
that
be
you
a
can
weird
check it.
Sequoia. The M4 Mac Mini, which is brand new, is running macOS Sequoia, and that's a new operating system. So who knows? There's probably bugs in it too. It's hard to say. I'm not convinced it's a hardware problem because the device is on and it is saying it is receiving HDMI signal. It's just not sending any video out.
You know
So
what's
we'll
strange
see.
about that? I don't have an M4, but I do have the OWC 11 Thunderbolt dock, the 11 channels.
That's
And
what I
every
have,
once in a
too.
while, I get an alert from my Mac saying your USB device is drawing too much power. I don't think that's even possible with the OWC because it's self-powered.
That makes
So
no
if any-
sense. It shouldn't be
Yeah, it
happening.
makes no sense.
But is it trying to charge the device that it's connected to?
That's
through
what I was going to
USB?
say. Maybe it's trying to draw power from the.
Well, the dock
Thunderbolt.
has its own power supply, so it's a massive 24-volt external power supply. So it's not even being bus
Right.
powered.
But on the back of, I have one of those OWCs, and on the back you can use the 15-watt USB or the 65-watt USB.
Oh.
Maybe.
I didn't even look.
Yeah, there's numbers next to
He's
the
right.
USBs.
I think it's the blue A or B style
Yeah, I'm
USB.
gonna have to double check that. But anyways,
Yeah,
it's
double
being
check.
plugged in. It's been working fine since I got it for the last 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden, so something's happened.
Well, the beauty is the show continued. We still can hear you. Maybe we can't see you. And we had
Well,
another
this
great
is
program.
radio's theater of the mind, so you can just
So-
imagine.
Do you think this is an ATEM issue?
No, because it's the Roland is saying it is receiving HDMI input and it locked it to 1080p 30. So it's getting signal. It is just not sending video out.
I'm not buying that it's getting the signal.
Well,
And here's why. Here's my guess, or not my guess, but here's what I'm thinking. A lot of times when we're on Zoom calls, you get the ATEM gray, right? And so the Zoom still thinks it has a signal because it doesn't automatically cut off the video, which it will do when it doesn't get a signal. And then as soon as you turn that power cycle, the ATEM, it comes back. So I'm wondering if you did a power cycle right now on the ATEM, if all of a sudden the video would come back through.
That's a good point. I could do it right now on the show, in the middle of the show. Without...
Yeah, do it now. We're wrapped up, and I'm sure folks listening would be interested to see what the outcome is. So give it a shot. Still gray.
It takes it a second to recycle.
You were there. It's like we're figuring things out here. I suspect that things are getting progressively more complicated in the setup. We're asking things to do more different stuff.
Right. We're not spreading. We might not be spreading out the load over enough equipment.
I think the load is good because an M4 is pretty hefty.
Yeah, but
there might be a bug.
If it's doing ISOs and it's doing video and it's doing a bunch of things, it might be better to
split up different computers for that.
Task up.
He'll find out. He's a smart man. He'll find things out. All right. Well, let's wrap up this show.
Well,
let's call it a.
Come back.
He's not coming back, folks, and I don't even know if we're recording. But thanks again for another great program where we found out a lot. Mark, thanks for stepping in.
Yep.
Alex appreciates your helping out, and I do too. And next week, I don't know if we have a guest lined up. I've got a bunch of people that are committing to be coming on the show, but around the holidays, it's tough to get people nailed down to something because they've got lots of family obligations. And we do this show live on Sundays, so that means we've got to lock people in at a specific time. So thank you very much for your continued support. Thanks for the questions. We will provide the answers as often as we can. We'll see everybody next week, getting closer to that great holiday. Think about, what would you buy somebody that's a geek a gift for the holidays? That's what you want you to think about between now and next Sunday's show. Let's share some gift ideas. Thanks again, and take care.